Hi, I'm Juan Verde. This is Crash Course World History. Today we're going to be talking about the 20th century revolution, specifically the Russian Revolution. The 20th century Russian Revolution was an important shift to communism in the same way the American and French revolutions were important to democracy. While the Russian Revolution started with benign intentions to reform a crippled society, it ended in one-party rule for little freedom. Now let's delve into the 1905 Russian Revolution. Down with the Tsar! As with other revolutions, there have to be ingredients to fuel unrest. Let's go to the thought bubble.
In the later 1800s, Russia was undergoing some fundamental changes under the leadership of Tsar Alexander II. All seemed to be well as serfs were freed, local councils called zemstvos that ultimately possessed no national power were formed. Literacy skyrocketed, there was a new level of equality for women in society, and the state sponsored massive industrialization to utilize Russia's rich natural resources, especially in railroads. You may have heard of the Trans-Siberian Railroad. Underneath Russia's advances, though, was a society that was growing irritated. Peasant farmers were trapped in their old ways of life, and serfs were restricted from true freedom by the required redemption payments paid to their masters. The ones who did escape to the cities weren't much better off, as evidenced by a report from the Ministry of Finance in the 1880s. Work at the mill never stops, day or night. In factory number 135, the workers are still treated as serfs. Wages are paid out only twice a year, even then not in full but only enough to pay the workers' taxes. Thus, the workers are without money all year round. Perhaps more telling is the fact that most of those accounts were largely ignored by the Russian government. Not only were the poor dissatisfied, the professionals called for liberal reforms such as the freedom of the press and the permission for more open participation in the government. Intellectuals, called the intelligentsia, joined with student organizations from Russia's growing number of universities to begin pressing for more radical changes. All the while, Tsar Alexander II was heightening dissatisfaction by crunching down on the hubbub through censorship and government supervision now that his reforms were turning against him. After repeated attempts of terrorism, he was finally assassinated in 1881.
The last straw was Russia's humiliating loss in Manchuria during the 1904 and 1905 Russo-Japanese War and the Bloody Sunday Massacre in which the Tsar's palace guards fired on peaceful demonstrators. This sparked widespread protests from urban workers, liberal organizations, and peasants. Tsar Nicholas II responded with police repression, but his regime did liberate the former serfs some more, and it did install the Duma parliament.
Still, the 1905 revolution proved fairly unrevolutionary. The Tsar was unwilling to relinquish his autocratic powers to the Duma, and public opinion of the ruling party further deteriorated since Nicholas II was of the more withdrawn type. Plus, there was this creepy Rasputin guy messing with the royal Romanov family. Another element to the Tsar's fall was the government's refusal to pull out of World War I. Fighting against Germany was proving to be exceedingly detrimental to Russian society. Finally, in March 1917, food riots and strikes in the Russian capital pressured for a redesigned political system. Once the Soviet, or Committee of Workers, arrested the Tsar's administration, his career was done. For a while, Russia's government was coming along well. Alexander Kerensky and some other Western libertarians installed a multi-party democracy with a freely elected parliament. In October of the same year, Russia experienced another revolution. This time, it was Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks, who have been rising in popularity since the 1890s. That took over Russia with the promise that they will address its problems. They operated under the slogan, "Peace, love, and bread."
The new Communist Party stuck to their word and soon signed the Brest-Litovsk Treaty in 1918 to cede Germany territory in exchange for a peaceful exit out of World War I, and enacted much-needed land redistribution reforms to appease peasants. Meanwhile, a civil war between the Reds, the Communists, and the Whites, the Tsar's sympathizers, raged on for another few years. Fortunately for Lenin, his partner in crime, Leon Trotsky, and the robust Red Army took care of that. To cure the economic despair Russia was experiencing, Lenin avoided complete nationalization and introduced his new economic policy, or NEP, in 1921. Under this policy, small businesses and landowning peasants, aka kulaks, could maintain their ways of life, while the government took over big industries and established overarching economic rules. Communist rule solidified in 1923 when the new constitution was finalized. It centralized power into the Communist Party headed by Lenin, yet recognized Russia's multi-ethnicity by organizing distinct socialist republics, hence the name Soviet Union.
In the grand scheme of things, Russia's revolution had several important impacts. It initiated the Cold War, which cemented the United States' superpower status. It influenced and supported other communist countries such as China, Cuba, and Vietnam. And in the tensions with the West, it also initiated proxy wars such as the Vietnam War. Alright, Crash Course is produced by Carlos, Jason, Ashley, and Dylan. Our main narrator is Carlos, our script supervisor is Jason. Crash Course is illustrated by Ashley and edited by Dylan. And this is Carlos, Comrade Verde signing out. Peace. Let's practice.